Hello and welcome to this episode of the program. I'm Benjamin Anthony, co-founder and CEO of the Miriam Institute, and I'm delighted to be broadcasting from right here in the JBS studios in Times Square, Manhattan, New York. And I do so because we have a very important conversation ahead of us. We're recording this during the course of Yom Ha'atzmaut, Independence Day, the festival that the State of Israel celebrates year on year, although this year, due to current circumstances, will be doing so in a more subdued manner than is typical. It is particularly instructive that as the Jewish people celebrate the independence of the State of Israel, we yet keep in mind those who were kidnapped on October the 7th, by terrorists who stormed into southern Israel from the Gaza Strip, terrorists from the Hamas terror army, also terrorists from Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and who stole from the people of Israel, its men, its women, its children. Inside the dungeons of the Gaza Strip, there yet remain 59 hostages of the State of Israel who were abducted on that dreadful day, 24 of whom are presumed to be alive. One of those 24 is Evyatar David, kidnapped at the age of 22 and having spent 2 of his birthdays in captivity, remains in captivity inside the dungeons of Gaza. It is upon all of us, even at this time of celebration, that we yet turn our attention to the ongoing plight not only of Evyatar, but of everybody who is held captive alongside him, still inside Gaza, and the families of those who want their loved ones to be let go so that they can be redeemed and so that they can return to the land, the people, the family that is Am Yisrael Kulo, the entire Jewish people. It's out of that context and with that very clear understanding, knowing that there is a young man who currently knows nothing of independence, who currently knows nothing of freedom of movement, who currently knows nothing of self-determination or of personal agency, shackled as he is inside the Gaza Strip. It's in that context that I am very, very pleased and honored to have here with me Ilay David, brother of Evyatar, who has returned to the United States in order to drive the focus and the consciousness of all potential active, passive onlookers to this terrible situation, to drive to the forefront of their consciousness the continued ongoing suffering of his brother Evyatar and all of the other hostages who must come home. With that, Ilay, thank you so very much for being with me.
Thank you for having me, Benjamin, and thank you for JBS for having us.
It's wonderful, and I should mention JBS actually agreed to do this really at a moment's notice, which is very much the ethos of this organization. And I encourage people to become as familiar as they possibly can with its very, very important work. I want to begin with a very basic question for you. I want you to talk to the audience and tell the audience, and tell me as well, anything that you can about Evyatar. Because I think that when 252 of our people were kidnapped into the Gaza Strip, it became almost impossible just by way of the sheer mass of people that were taken that day for the audience at home to focus on any one individual. I want you to individuate Evyatar from that group. Tell us about him.
So Evyatar is a very big music fan. He went to a different festival every month, he and his friends. It was like a real passion of him to go to music festivals like the Nova. It wasn't his first time going to the Nova. Just a month before October 7th, he's been to another festival. And he's also a brilliant guitar player. He plays the guitar since he's 12. And he is very good at it. He initially wanted to learn to hit the drums, but my parents wouldn't allow it because Evyatar was a very hyperactive kid. So they sent him to learn guitar. And he fell in love. He fell in love with the guitar. And when we got older, me and him, we started to play music together. I play the piano, Evyatar plays the guitar, and we had a tradition to play music every week. That was our bond, it was our connection. That's what I miss the most of him, just hearing him playing the guitar and hearing him singing. He has a beautiful voice. He's also a very compassionate person. He has a kind soul, and his friends tell about him that he's like the therapist. He's always there to listen. He doesn't want to be at the spotlight. He likes to be more at the side, but his friends always know that he's the one to be there always, no matter what happens. And that's Evyatar. He has so many friends, and we worry about him a great deal.
Where did Evyatar live before he was kidnapped? Where was he living?
He lived in Kfar Saba. It's a small town next to Tel Aviv. He lived with my parents and my younger sister. And he worked as a barista, then a shift manager in a restaurant. He tried to save money for his future travels. He wanted to go to Thailand and after that to Japan with his best friend Guy. That was the plan. And after that, he wanted to go and learn music production and make his dream something, like his passion, something professional. And I think it's beautiful.
Are you his older brother or younger brother?
I'm his older brother.
You're his older brother.
Evyatar is in the middle, and we have also a younger sister.
And what's your younger sister's name?
Her name's Yaela.
And she's how old?
She's 20. So I'm 28, Evyatar perfectly in the middle, he's 24.
And your parents, tell us about your parents.
So my parents live in Kfar Saba. They raised me in Kfar Saba. So since I know myself, we live in the same apartment. My father is an osteopath. He learned acupuncture. Osteopath. He has a clinic. He treats people.
And his name?
Avishai.
Avishai. And your mother?
My mother, Galia. She's a dancing teacher. She teaches teenagers in a school. And she's also a sports teacher for elderly people. So she really has, like, from young to elderly people in her life.
Yeah.
And I think all of us, we are simple people.
I think that's actually really important for the audience to understand. So you're here, you're going to be knocking on the doors of members of Congress, knocking on the doors of members of the Senate. We'll get to all of that. Even you're attempting to speak to the president if possible. But neither you nor your mother, who I know reasonably well because we've been working with your family since this crisis emerged, but you have no desire to be in the spotlight. You have no desire to be on TV. Yeah. You are very, very down to earth, simple in the best sense of the word.
Yeah.
People, right? What we'd call salt of the earth. You just want to go back to normality, and normality requires that your brother comes home.
That's right. We have no connections. We have no desire to be anything bigger than what we used to be. We just want to go back to our lives. Exactly.
And just to add another dimension about you, so the audience recognizes who they're hearing from, you, despite the battle that you're really engaged in, you yet pursued your studies. You graduated. Tell the audience about that.
So I was just at the finish line of my degree in physics, and when October 7th, I really didn't know what to do with myself. Especially, I wanted to determine all my patience and time to this cause of saving Evyatar's life. But because I think I needed something else to stay sane, and also because I have a very good friend that pushed me, I managed to finish my first degree in physics, which is great. And hopefully again, maybe, I I dream a lot of what will I do when all of this will be over. And when I think about it through, I think about being a teacher, teach physics, teenagers. I used to work with teenagers, and they bring sanity to my life.
Teenagers bring you sanity.
Yeah, there's something very, very calm and sweet about teenagers' problems. It's so down to earth, and it's so like silly sometimes.
Right.
I mean, they are more concerned about who will sit right next to them on the bus than things.
Listen, the world definitely needs you, because if you think there's something wonderful about teenagers and their problems, you're a very rare individual. And I think about myself when I was a teenager. I don't think anybody thought I was particularly wonderful. So I hope that you pursue that. Tell us. Let's turn now to the matter at hand, because it's obviously a very heavy matter, and the goal here is to have you really have a candid conversation with the folks at home. So talk to us about the circumstances of October 7th. How did you find out about what had befallen Evyatar?
So on October 7th, we knew Evyatar went to a festival, but we were not sure where or what festival. But the night before, we sat down for a normal Shabbat dinner. Me, my sister, Evyatar, my parents. It was also Simchat Torah. So it was a special evening, and we didn't get to play music this time. Evyatar just set off really quick, picked up his friends with my mom's car, and he reached the Nova area by midnight. One of his friends, Ron, she's like the mother of the group. She's the most responsible on the group. She was an officer in the military. And my mother was in connection with her. On 6:30 a.m., when the alarm started, we ran to the bomb shelter and we tried to connect Evyatar to see what's going on. And at the beginning, terrorists, they didn't breach the Nova so soon. It took time till they stormed this area. They didn't know about the Nova at all at the beginning. So it took time, and we didn't understand what's going on, and they didn't understand what's going on. Evyatar tried to hide. And I remember he sent on 7:42 his last message to my mother. He sent her, we're on our way. Like it's okay, we're on our way. A minute later, my mom opens TV and sees terrorists on pickup trucks inside Sderot.
Yeah.
And then she understands if there are terrorists inside Sderot, there must be terrorists inside the Nova. But Evyatar was disconnected in that minute. Like, disappeared, completely disappeared. So we tried to do whatever we can to reach him somehow we called him, his friends. We tried to reach the festival production team. We tried to reach the police and the army, of course, which had no idea what's going on. They were in the middle of a fight. And it took us very long hours to understand that maybe something terrible is going on. Really, really terrible. But this possibility of kidnapping, I only thought about it like it's a joke. I mean, I laughed about it. I mean, I didn't think it's a genuine option that my brother is going to be kidnapped. So in my mind, I was prepared for the worst scenario, which is my younger brother is probably dead. He's dead. And maybe it will take time to recover his body. And I really remember how I prepared myself for the burial of my younger brother. Like, it was very clear to me in my head how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take care of my sister, my parents. I'm the older brother. I need to take care of the family. That's how it felt. And around 2 p.m., my sister, somebody contacted her and asked if she heard something about Evyatar, and she said no. And then he just sent her a screenshot, and he said, I think I recognize Evyatar in that shot. And I mean, you couldn't confuse. It was Evyatar, 100%. He was looking into the camera. He was terrified. It looked like a dark room. And she called everybody, all of us. And I just took her phone automatically, ran to my room, and asked for this guy to send the full video. And then he sent not only one, he sent 2 links to 2 different videos. And I watched them one by one. And again, I'm thinking about an execution. That's what's in my mind. And I see a terrorist holding Evyatar from his neck, like really dragging him. And Evyatar is walking on his feet. His hands are tied behind his back, and he's shirtless. Somebody tore his shirt, maybe in some kind of a struggle. And for 22 seconds, he's just being led inside Gaza Strip. I recognize it's the Gaza Strip because I saw Arabic letters on the walls. And then I watch the second video, and I see 5 young men inside the dark room. All of them are tied, and they were lying on the floor. And you saw that some of them are hardly beaten. And the terrorists...
You mean, just to correct that, you see that some of them have been beaten hard.
Yes.
Not hardly beat, they've been beaten.
Yeah, they've been beaten
badly.
badly, yes, exactly. And the cameraman, he was filming their faces very closely. It was, they tried to, I mean, it's part of their propaganda. It was very important for the terrorists that will recognize those people. And one by one, the camera moves, and then it gets to Evyatar. That's where the screenshot was taken from. And after that, Guy, his friend that he went to the festival with.
This is Guy Gilboa Dalal.
Guy Gilboa Dalal.
Who was a childhood friend of Evyatar.
Exactly.
And they both went to the festival together, and they were both kidnapped from the festival, and they were both in this video that you saw that showed them in captivity with some of the other hostages as well. Clearly in being shuffled around, moved around, harassed by Hamas.
Yes, and all of these, all 5 of them are young men, all in their 20s. One of them, Almog Mirjan, was rescued on June, and the 2 others, Bar Kuperstein and Elkana Bukhbout, are still being held captive, like my brother, like Evyatar.
It's important, again, for people to understand that there are different groups of hostages. Although the hostages at various points have spoken with one voice, within the collective that is the hostages seized on October the 7th, there are different categories. There were elderly women, there were elderly men, there were people with medical complications and conditions. And within those different categories is a category known as men of age. And men of age, essentially, are males aged from approximately 17 to 50, somewhere right around there, whom Hamas cynically, falsely suggests and describe as being enemy combatants simply because of their gender and their age. And as a consequence of that, these men of age are the least likely to be released during the course of any hostage release deal. And if there is a likelihood of them being released, it is that they will be released at the end. And once that list is exhausted, and Evyatar falls squarely into that category. So I again want to bring this home to the viewer. If the viewer stops, if you, the viewer, stop for a moment and picture your worst nightmare, it might perhaps involve the abduction of somebody you love. It might perhaps involve, in your worst nightmare scenario and imaginations, the kidnapping of your son or of your daughter. But here, because the situation is so dreadful, when Ilay and his family saw the video of Evyatar having been kidnapped, that constituted not their worst nightmare, though it was surely awful and appalling, but actually a glimmer of hope. In other words, Ilay, you knew from that video that Evyatar was alive.
Yeah.
And from that you drew encouragement, and from that you understood that your fear that you were going to have to bury your brother was not a fear that you had yet realized.
Exactly. And it felt, when I saw that video, I felt like, oh, the world is collapsing, really collapsing. And I felt rage. I was so angry about everyone, about the terrorists and about my parents and about myself. And I blame myself and I blame anybody.
You don't still blame yourself, do you?
Most of the time I don't. Most of the time. It's very hard not to blame yourself when your brother is in such dreadful situation.
Can you tell me about that? Why would you blame yourself, if you don't mind me asking? You were nowhere near the situation.
That's right, but maybe I could be there. Maybe I could save him. There are so many scenarios which are, most of them not realistic, but I constantly think, what can I do better? Why didn't I do something else at the beginning that could save him, that could save his life now? Or maybe the interviews I give, maybe they are not efficient enough or effective enough, or maybe they harm him in some way. All my advocacy, which is a lot, and it's my life right now, and I'm trying to save his life, and all of my intentions are to save his life and repair our hearts. Sometimes, if I feel I did something wrong, it's a big deal. It's a very big deal because we're dealing with human life. So it's hard to describe how it really feels.
Well, I just want to tell you that if God forbid, I should ever know a crisis that even approaches the crisis your family's in, I would want an older brother like you working on this, because I've seen the way that you've done it. I've seen the way you've done it since October 7th, Ilay. I've seen the way that you've traveled tirelessly. Your whole life's been put on hold. You're very effective at communicating the level and the magnitude of the crisis. You're very sincere. I know everybody watching this will immediately connect to your message.
Thank you.
And I hope in time you can relieve yourself of that sense of guilt and burden. It's a different conversation. Maybe we can have it offline. But so
first you need to come back home.
First he needs to come back home. Okay, so let's come to that, and please God he will come back home.
He will.
So you see that Evyatar's been kidnapped on October the 7th. You don't see anything about him since October the 7th until on February 22nd, 2025, 505 days after he was initially kidnapped, Hamas drives him and his friend to go and watch the release of other hostages that were being returned to Israel on that date. They film Evyatar watching the release of the hostages.
Yeah.
They then choreograph a plea made by Evyatar and by Guy for their release from Prime Minister Netanyahu. They then slam closed the door of the car, and they return in an act of unspeakable psychological cruelty, Evyatar and Guy, to the dungeons of Hamas, and you again are presented after 505 days without seeing him with the reality that he is very much alive.
Yes.
And I know that you have a photograph of that, and I want you to speak to how that made you feel.
So for a very, very long time, 505 days, it's a very long time. Just try to think, it's almost a year and a half. We had to believe very, very strongly that Evyatar is alive in that period of time, because we had some evidence, but nothing really solid, no videos, no footage since October 7th. And we had this very strong feeling that Evyatar is alive. Very strong. But we didn't know the conditions, we didn't know where he's being held. Hamas hasn't gave us anything. We could only imagine that he's being held in a very bad shape. Underground, above ground, it doesn't matter, because if you're above ground, you are inside a war zone. If you're underground, so you're being held in a very harsh conditions. And we really had nothing, only just manifesting that Evyatar is okay, and like really understanding that Evyatar is an asset to the terrorists because he's a man of age, because he's healthy. And in that day, I actually spent my entire February I spent in here at the States, and I went to a big conference, CPAC, which happens every year, and I was there with Guy's older brother, Gal. So both of us came to speak about our younger brothers. We know each other. Because Evyatar and Guy are so good, such good friends. The families know each other very good. So me and him decided to go together and speak about our younger brothers. And suddenly, our phone explodes. We sat down to listen to Trump's speech. He took a speech.
By the way, it didn't literally explode. You know, we live in an era where the idea blows up pages. Your phone didn't explode. It started getting a lot of messages.
A lot of messages, a lot of phone calls. We understood something very odd is going on, something unique, unregular, and it really happened while Trump took his speech. So it was. I think it symbolizes something if you think about it through. And then we open Telegram and we see a 5 minutes long video, and we understand Evyatar and Guy are in that video. And 3 first minutes, it's about the released hostages, and then immediately it turns into the releasing parade that Hamas did in that day. And then you could see Evyatar and Guy. They just sat inside a van. And they were forced to watch as their friends being released on stage, where Omer Shem Tov, Omer Venkert, and Elia Cohen and Evyatar, that's him, and this is Guy. They sat down in a van, looked how freedom looks like. They could taste freedom in those moments. And then they were begging for their lives into the camera, and thrown back into the dungeon, to the same dungeon, as we understand, the same dungeon with the same captors. And it's like it was so mixed, because from the one hand, Evyatar is alive, Guy is alive, they are together, which is a miracle. And now all the world can see that. It's not only our wish, our belief. We know they are alive. They were kept alive all that time. On the other hand, we know they suffered all that time. And to see them so pale and so starved and so desperate. And I could see my brother's body language. Evyatar and I, we have the same body language, and it's like looking in the mirror when I saw him, because I would do the same. What he did with his head and with his hands and with his eyes, and I saw how he wants to cry so much. he really holds himself. And I broke down. I think it took me something like 2 weeks to get up of bed, because I was so broken to see Evyatar in that situation. Evyatar is such a kind and sweet boy, and to see him that tortured and abused, it broke me to pieces, and it broke my parents to pieces. And after that came the evidence. So now we didn't have only that video, we also heard from the hostages that spent hundreds of days with Evyatar how harsh the conditions are.
Tell us about those conditions. And before you tell us about that, I just want the audience to see what Evyatar normally looks like,
Yeah.
as opposed to the image. This is a sun-kissed, strong, happy, vibrant, high on life type of individual.
Yes.
And he's been taken not only away from all of that, but he's been taken from embodying that to being pale, very, very thin. We can see from the images that he's very, very thin, and obviously in a completely desperate situation. Tell us what you know about the conditions he's being held in.
So we know that for 250 days, and we believe that he's still being held in those conditions since February 22nd. So it's something like 300 days.
So for the past 300 days?
The past 300 days.
Not initially after he was kidnapped, the past 300 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can talk about everything. We can talk also about the first days.
Okay. Tell me about the conditions now.
So now he's being held, as we understand, I mean, we cannot know for sure, but we estimate that he's on the same situation, like the last 300 days. And try to imagine the space. 3.5 feet wide on 35 feet long of a tunnel, a terror tunnel, concrete tunnel. They have no communication to the outside world, and they are forced to stay in that very small room for hundreds of days. So they don't know what's going on outside. The only information they have from the outside world is what the terrorists decide to tell them, and sometimes it's lies, because they also try to break them mentally. The terrorists are trying to break Evyatar and the others mentally. And they have very small amount of food. So basically they are starving. They have 1 meal a day, and usually it's very small meal. And they need to, they really told us how Guy was dividing the food very equally. So none of them will be more hungry than the other.
What might that one meal be? What's an example of that one meal?
So it could be rice, like 3 or 4, in good days, 5 or 6 spoonfuls of rice, white rice.
5 or 6 teaspoons, small spoons, big spoons.
Like,
I want people to understand, and you can tell us, you can explain it.
So it's something like 300 calories of rice,
Right.
which is
It's nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
In better days, it was doubled, which is also nothing. Some other meals are pita bread with white cheese, and it happened a lot. That
One pita between them, or one pita each?
one pita bread each, but
Okay.
it's not the normal pitas that we know from supermarket. It's like Saj pita, so it's very thin.
Small, yeah.
It's small.
Yeah. It's not enough for a human being.
No, it's not enough for a human being, not enough for a young man, for sure. We know that they lose a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Tal Shoam, who spent 450 days with Evyatar, he lost nearly half of his weight. nearly half, and he's a 40 years old man. They're also being dehydrated. We know Guy had he got ill because he was dehydrated, and he wasn't speaking for days just to keep the moisture inside his body. He wasn't speaking. He was silent to keep the moisture inside, not lose any water vapors. They are forced to sleep right next to where they dug themselves a toilet. Inside that tunnel, they dug themselves a toilet. So they sleep right next to it. So imagine they were 4 in that tunnel, and one is very close to this hole in the ground, to this pit. And they switched every day. They switched their places because it's almost unbearable to sleep right next to that pit. They have a constant light above their heads, 3 light bulbs. So there is no sensation of day or night, and it's also psychologically it can drive you mad. And we know that their captors are abusive. So it's not like a daily routine that each of them gets a punch or something like that, but we do know that they basically can do whatever they want. So there were incidents where one of the terrorists came inside, spit on one of them, kicks the other, and goes out. If you'd like, you know. I think the most difficult thing in that situation is how to keep your spirit safe, because the body can endure almost anything, and as we understand, they weren't injured while they were kidnapped. They weren't injured through this period of time. Although they were beaten by the terrorists several times, but the mind can collapse at some point, and that's, I think, what worries me the most. Just knowing that they can break at some point. They can just break. Mentally, yes, mentally, and they are. They need to stay sane, and they try to have some kind of a daily routine. They have the same subject that they speak about every day. They speak about food 2 hours a day. They speak about TV shows they like. They speak about movies. They speak about their hobbies. They try to teach each other things. They taught themselves Arabic in order to communicate with their captors. Each one of them has a role. They are a unit. They became a family. They were 4. It was Guy, Evyatar, Tal Shoham, and Omer Wenkert, and they became like a family, like brothers. And they had to keep each other safe, and each one of them had a role. So Guy was on the food. He was responsible of dividing the food, and Tal, he's the oldest, so he was like their older brother. Omer was speaking with the terrorists. It was his job. That's what the terrorists decide. You're the commander of this
group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he was basically the representative of the group.
Exactly. He was the representative. He was forced to sleep the closest to the door of this hall. And Evyatar, he was responsible hygiene as much as you can be, keep the hygiene down there. But it's crucial because it's so easy to develop diseases down there with the humidity. It's very, very humid. They have a very small amount of oxygen, so the body is much more weaker. And because they have no food, not enough food, and the water are not that clean, and sometimes also the food is not that clean, and you sleep right next to where you
relieve yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to keep as much as clean as you can. So that's what was Evyatar's job, and really, I don't understand how he did it, how he's doing it.
They've been doubly snatched in some ways, because Evyatar, just hearing what you've said, Evyatar was snatched from his family and his loved ones on October the 7th. And then the people that he was being held alongside, who have become part of this family, this newfound family inside the tunnels of Gaza, he watches them snatched away from him.
Yes.
When they're released, to our incredible joy, by way of a hostage release deal. So,
Yeah.
so there's that terrible double trauma.
Yeah, it is a trauma, a double trauma, a continuous trauma that's going bigger and bigger. They took two of his new brothers, Tal and Omer.
And Tal and Omer continue the fight for Evyatar and Guy to come home.
Yes, and that's, I think, one of the things that inspires me the most the last couple of months is having these two young and amazing people right next to me. They didn't start their recovery yet. Mm-hmm. They have no time for that because their brothers, Evyatar and Guy, are still down there. They know where they came from. They know what conditions they are. They suffered it as much as Evyatar suffered it. So they'll do anything to release them right now.
So they became the brothers of Evyatar and Guy. Did they also become your brothers?
They become my brothers.
Do you look at them as your brothers as well, because they were the brothers of Evyatar and Guy as they were held in the same dungeons?
Yeah.
You do?
Totally.
So in the time that we've got left, I want to ask you to talk about a couple of topics, but briefly, mm-hmm. and then I want to make sure that the audience is given a series of action items. So the first thing I want you to know, and it's not, we live in a time in the United States and in Israel, and frankly all over, it seems, where there's tremendous polarization. You went to CPAC, there'll be a whole bunch of viewers who think, therefore, you went to CPAC and therefore you must be on the conservative side and you must be against the Democrats. I want to make it clear that there is absolutely no politicization of this issue in your mind. It happens to be that CPAC was hosting the President of the United States, and therefore you went to wherever you could get within the proximity of the most powerful man in the world. And if it had been DPAC, I don't even know if there is an equivalent, but if it had been the Democrat equivalent, you'd have gone there. You'd basically go anywhere and everywhere to get your message across, which all of the viewers would do as well.
Exactly.
So is that clear?
Yes.
You agree with that?
Exactly.
Okay, so because I just don't want people to be distracted by nonsense, mm-hmm. When we're dealing with such an important matter. So there are a lot of reports, a lot of people care about this issue, and they read the media, and one of the things in the media that is said is that the Prime Minister is not taking the time to meet with hostage families. Is that true? Is it not true?
He does meet with families.
Okay.
I think he, like all the government, was overwhelmed with what happened on mm-hmm. October 7th, like all of us. And we're still overwhelmed and can't understand that. And it took time, I think, for him to understand that he must meet with the families on a weekly basis. It took time. I mean, I have it's not true that he doesn't meet with families. He do meet with families. And again, I think he should keep that up. He needs to see us, he needs to feel us, he needs to understand what we are going through. And luckily, I'm not in his position. I mean, he's, I think, in the toughest position, and I don't want to switch with him, because he need to take action. He need to make big decisions. He needs to do the math. I can't do the math. He knows how to do the math, and he's the one responsible to eventually bring back my brother, to save his life.
And your family has met with the Prime Minister?
Yeah, my family met him.
Okay,
Yes.
and has your family met with other ministers of the government?
Of course. So we,
Okay.
from since the very beginning, it was very important for us that they will meet us and look us in the eyes, and we try to get connected. Because, as I said at the beginning, we had nothing to do with politics before that. We had nothing to do with media or social media or whatsoever. So we just got inside an uncharted zone. But we do meet ministers. I think every week my family meets another, at least one minister from the Israeli government.
Do you feel that they care about the issue?
I feel they care. I do criticize them for not doing enough, because I think if there was enough being done, and I think they did a lot of mistakes. I can't blame them for doing mistakes, but I can criticize them for not doing enough. And if enough was done, maybe we were in a different situation right now with more hostages, maybe all of them in home.
You've also met with Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. Tell me about that meeting. What's your impression of Steve Witkoff?
So, Mr. Witkoff, I think, is very talented. He's a decent guy. He's a good Jewish fellow. And actually, I went to the White House to meet him with some other hostage families and captivity survivors. It was a big group, and we sat inside his office, and we felt like family, really. He treated us like family. And he gave us all the time we needed to speak about our loved ones and tell our stories. And I really felt that he's the guy that's gonna save my brother. He, of course, with the Prime Minister and the President of the United States, but he's the guy that is currently in charge of that situation. And I was crying from excitement, really. And I was deeply moved by his desire to bring back my brother, which he doesn't know. He doesn't know him. But he gave me the feeling that he knows him and he will do anything to bring him back. And that's something I didn't feel for a very long time from anyone. So he's the one that really gave me that sensation, and he's very determined to do so. And I actually trust him. I trust him to do it.
Do you feel that the hostage issue and the return of the hostages back home in Israel has been politicized?
Yes, most of the time it is politicized. I think it's because of public media, mostly.
Domestic Israeli media?
Yes, the main channels. I also think that our politicians, because some of the things they said made it political. I mean, it's enough that one of the, I mean, it's absurd, but everything in Israel becomes politicized very, very quick. So if you are religious, for example, then you have to believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're probably voting to that. And that's what happens also to the hostages issue, which is absurd because we're talking about human beings, we're talking about innocent lives, we're talking about the most humanitarian cause there is. And more on that, the hostages are so different from each other. They are no homogenic. There are hostages who lives up north that they were, at the beginning, the families became refugees because of Hezbollah. Some of them, of course, from the kibbutzes, the kibbutzim, which were, most of them, I mean, so many communities got ruined and burned and slaughtered in that awful day. There are so many people from the center of Israel people just came to visit at the Gaza envelope, their families, or they went to celebrate at the Nova Festival. People from all ages were kidnapped, religious and non-religious. So I think that there's nothing more bipartisan than that. Saving all of them together. So it's sad. I think it was politicized, and it's sad. And we as families, most of us, we try to fight it all the time.
To fight against the politicization?
Yes, to fight against politicization, because we think it's bad for our cause.
So when you arrived here in the US and you contacted me, and because we've been in touch basically since the crisis, on and off, although I do want to distinguish my colleague Rosita Panini, who's the co-founder alongside me. She's very much engaged in this with your mother. She works very closely with your mother, and she's really been the propulsion of our organization for whatever we've been able to do. But I said to you, how do you detect the public mood as being right now? And I'd like you to respond to that. Tell the audience what you told me.
If we go back to Israel, I think everybody thinks about the hostages. It really follows everyone, because you just walk up at the street and you see posters everywhere, or yellow ribbons everywhere. So it's constantly it's on the streets. It's on your job. It's everywhere. So I know many people pray, and they pray about the hostages. They have the names and their mother's names, and they constantly, 3 times a day, pray about the hostages. So it's everywhere in Israel. But it's such a massive burden on our hearts that for more than 18 months, dozens of people are still being held in that hideous conditions by the hands of our enemies. So not only we failed to protect them on October 7th, we also failed to bring them back. And it's such a burden on everybody, really on everybody. But if we have Israeli viewers right now, I want them to know that we cannot lose hope in that manner. I mean, we have to keep fighting, we have to keep pushing, we have to do anything to bring an agreement that eventually releases all of them, all the hostages, all 59, the living one and the deceased. They must come home as soon as possible, and we have to keep pushing, no matter how time it will take, no matter how effort it will take. We cannot give up on a single one of them. We just can't. Mm-hmm. If you go here to the States, somehow the media lost interest, just lost interest. And it is very sad, because it's sadly, we have nothing new. People are still being held by terrorists for almost 19 months. And it doesn't get any news on that, because that's the situation. That's the sad reality we're in. So we have nothing new to give to the media. And that's a very big struggle of us to push and make it top agenda, make the hostages visible all the time. And I think that also the American people lose interest. And if it will come from down from the people.
From grassroots.
Exactly. If it comes from the American people to the producers and the anchors, they want to hear more about the hostages, maybe it will change something.
Well, Ilay, I want to conclude this by telling the viewers at home what you want them to do. There is a list of things that you want them to achieve. So, ladies and gentlemen who are watching this, we are not conducting this interview in the pursuit of your sympathies and your care and your emotional support for the family, because we presume that that's forthcoming, and we appreciate that, and the families appreciate that. But now, after so long, after so many days have passed, after so much time has been spent by Evyatar and all of the hostages in the dungeons of Hamas inside the Gaza Strip, now is the time for people to take action. And there is a very short action item list that I want to put before you. And I want all of you to consider how you can help implement those action items as individuals. And I'm going to refer to the notes that were provided to me by Ilay. So first of all, his family is seeking a PR company to be retained in order to continue to push to the forefront of public consciousness the ongoing plight of this young man, Evyatar David, who has been in captivity for far too long. One day is far too long. He has been in captivity now, and he has gone through 2 of his birthdays in that position. This has to come to an end. So the David family is seeking to retain a PR company that is effective, that can put their story to the forefront of public consciousness through the media here in the United States, and they are seeking somebody who will sponsor the retention of that PR company. If you are somebody who has the wherewithal financially to sponsor and retain a PR company, if you own a PR company, if you work in PR, or if you know somebody who does, please contact me. I will forward that information on to the David family. You can do so by way of the email address that's coming across the bottom of the screen now, and I'll speak it out for you in case you're listening to this on audio. It's info@miriaminstitute.org. That's Miriam spelt MIRYAM, institute.org. So the email address again, info@miriaminstitute.org. The family is also looking to bring legal charges against Hamas and to harass Hamas in that way. If you are somebody with relevant legal expertise, or you know somebody with relevant expertise, please email me at the same address. The crisis of these hostages affects not only Ilay, who is part of the first circle of the hostage, in this case Evyatar, the sibling of the hostage, and not only the parents of the hostages, but it also is such a dreadful situation that it profoundly negatively impacts upon the second and third circles of the hostage families, because individuals such as Ilay cannot travel without the support of other family members. And so not only has Ilay stopped his life to all intents and purposes, not only have Evyatar's parents stopped their lives to all intents and purposes, but so have the aunts and the uncles and the cousins. And those second and third tiers that are so vital to supporting the first circle of family, they do not get any financial assistance from the government of the State of Israel. So if you want to support them financially so that they in turn are able to support Ilay's sister and Ilay's parents as they continue this battle for their brother's freedom, please feel free to make a fully tax-deductible donation through the Miriam Institute. Visit our website. You can click on the donate page and write there that your gift, your support is to be dedicated exclusively to the David family. We will issue a tax-deductible receipt and we will send 100% of those funds directly to the David family so that they can continue their work. They also need financial assistance for the purpose of travel, accommodation, when they can, like Ilay has done, to the United States in order to campaign to bring Evyatar home. And finally, when Evyatar does come home, and I have personal experience with this, I was working not only with Evyatar's family, but also with the family of Almog Me'il Jan. And as we spoke to community after community, as we spoke to media outlet after media outlet in order to promote the story of their plight, as we spoke to government officials and elected officials and legislative advisors and government advisors and PR advisors, people would say time and time again, when they come home, we'll all celebrate together. And sure enough, Almog Me'il Jan did come home. He came home by way of Operation Al-Non, a daring rescue operation that brought him home and also Noel Gamani home. But the work is not yet ended. The work is not concluded. The battle goes on, the war goes on, and no outcome will be acceptable other than the return, as Ilay said, of all of the hostages, all of the 59 hostages, those who are no longer possessed of life, and of course, the 24 who are presumed to be alive. And we know that Evyatar David is alive. So when they do come home, they require assistance in order to be rehabilitated. And so Ilay is raising funds for that outcome when it comes about. May it be speedy and swift.
Amen.
And with all of that having been said, I want to urge you, people at home, if we, the Jewish people, cannot find of our resources to join forces with families like Ilay's family in order to bring home not only their son, but the son of all of us. Evyatar David could be the son of any of you. He was kidnapped purely because he's a Jew, and he is being tormented purely because he's a Jew. If we cannot find the resources, the time, and the focus to walk this walk and follow this journey side by side, shoulder to shoulder with Ilay David and his family as they battle for Evyatar's return, that will be the mark of Cain upon the forehead of every single one of us. All of us have more that we can do. All of us must do more, lest we should walk around shamed and embarrassed about the fact that we didn't put our shoulders to the wheel when it was required. So I'm asking you, please, contact me with any of the action items that I've just described. I'm voicing the items that Ilay wants to have implemented with him here listening to me. And let's see how we can move this situation forward to the outcome that all of us, every single one of us, want. Ilay, I want to give you, please, if you would, the last word.
Yeah.
I'd like you to communicate with our audience and leave them with the message that's on your heart and in your mind.
So just to close it up, we have to first manifest. Before we do anything else, we have to believe Evyatar is coming home, all 59 are coming home, and we have to concentrate and manifest this moment. And for me, it's just imagining Evyatar coming back, hugs my parents, I hug him, my sister hugs him, we sit down to play music again and sing again. And I think every one of us need to have that picture in his mind of the hostages coming back, and it will become reality, and it will give us the energy and the strength to do whatever we can in order to help those people to be brought back home.
Ilay, thank you so very much for being with us. Thank you for giving your time. Thank you for all you're doing on behalf of your brother Evyatar and on behalf of all of the hostages. And as I said earlier, may it be that they're returned home and redeemed swiftly. And I pray for the
Amen.
return of all of our hostages. I pray for the safety of our soldiers, and I pray for the wisdom of our leaders, so that we can bring this terrible chapter of Jewish history to a very abrupt but perhaps positive close. Thank you very much, Ilay.
Amen. Thank you, Benjamin.